Hi, this is Alex, and in this short video, I'd like to show you my personal experiences from being in a long-term relationship with a Vietnamese woman. I'm going to tell you basically the plus, basically the realities, and also maybe the more romanticized version, because some people may have a little bit more of the latter and not enough of the former. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about here over the next several minutes.
But first, how would you like an ongoing supply of free reports, helpful resources and unique cultural insights for meeting, dating and marrying a Vietnamese woman? Too easy. Just take a quick moment to subscribe. And click the bell icon. And you'll never miss out again.
Before we get too deep into this, I want to share you a little bit about my background, which you may or may not know. If you've been following our channel for a while, you've probably seen glimpses into my background a little bit, but let me kind of share this for the first time on a video so you kind of have some context about what I'm going to be sharing with you, okay? So I'm in my 50s now. I came to the US when I was very young. I left my country when I was 8, and we spent a year in a refugee camp. Came to the US when I was 9. And during that time, I grew up obviously in a Vietnamese family. Now, because I came when I was so young, I assimilated a lot more into the American culture than even any of my older brothers. I'm the youngest of 6. So Vanessa, on the other hand, came when she was a little bit older. She was in her late teens. And so our perspective and our philosophy, on certain things are a little bit different. In some cases, very different. And so this is the perspective I'd like to share with you. Now, as you could probably tell, obviously, I'm not Caucasian, which is probably most likely if you're watching this video, that's what you are. But I did want to kind of share with you that pretty much everybody in my family, including Vanessa, considers me more quote unquote American than Vietnamese, mainly because I'm far more fluent in English than I am in Vietnamese. I probably speak Vietnamese like a child. Right? I can understand complex concepts, but my vocabulary is extremely limited. So in that regard, pretty much, my family, all my close friends, they would say that I'm quote unquote very Americanized and very westernized. Now, because I grew up in a Vietnamese family and my parents, out of respect for them, I still maintain my Vietnamese heritage. When people ask me, I always tell them I'm Vietnamese. Now, why is that important? Well, because I have a very unusual and very unique and probably unique perspective on this because of the fact that I'm with a Vietnamese woman. I'm Vietnamese, but I also am very immersed in quote unquote having lived in the US here in the States, right? Most people, they read my writing or even they talk to me, they're very hard pressed to tell that I'm Vietnamese because of just how I communicate and my perspective on things. Most of my clients are English speaking clients. I've been a consultant now for probably 30 some years. I tell you all of this just so backdrop to give you, some context of what we're going to cover next. Okay, otherwise it's going to come across as a little bit random. All right. With that out of the way, let me share with you, a couple of points. And this is going to be an ongoing series. My perspective on this is I try to make this as close to a journal as possible. There's certain things I rather not share because it's still uncomfortable. But over time, I'm going to open up and share with you, kind of like a window into our lives and our friends' lives. Obviously, if it's my friends' lives, then I have to keep that anonymous. But that's going to give you a more balanced view of what it is to be a Vietnamese woman. I say this because some of the folks that we run into, they have a very romanticized version of what it's like to be with a Vietnamese woman. And while I think that's fine. It may be not what it's like to be. It's one thing to date somebody, right? And basically you see everybody be on their best behavior. But to be somebody in a long-term relationship, you have to accept the good and the bad, right? Not necessarily that they're evil or anything like that, but everybody's got shortcomings, right? I mean, that's just part of being an adult and accepting the world as it is. So, having said that, let me share with you again my perspective because that's enough preamble here. I've been with Nessa now going on many years, and the one thing I will tell you is this, right? Is even though I thought I understood what a Vietnamese woman is like, you have to understand, I'm young of 6, right? All my sister-in-laws, I have multiple brothers, only one sister. Most of my sister-in-laws and my brother-in-law are Vietnamese, right? For the most part, most of my friends that are Vietnamese have been married, perhaps 80% of them are to other Vietnamese, women, right? Or men. And about 20-30% of my friends are, in mixed marriages, right? So I've had a lot of experience interacting with Vietnamese women, but I've never been in a long-term relationship until I was with Vanessa. And so because of that, I thought, notice the air quotes, right? I thought I knew what a Vietnamese woman's like. I have a sister, I have multiple sister-in-laws and all that, but that still didn't there's still, stuff that I found out after being in a relationship, right? So let me be more specific here. So, for example, depending on the age of the woman, right? Now, what I'm talking about here is applies more to, some of this is going to apply to women here and also women back in Vietnam. Where there's differences, I'll emphasize that, okay? And obviously, we're talking about, something as complex as another gender. I'm going to make sometimes broad statements, but for the most part, I'll differentiate as much as possible. So the one thing that you would want to know about Vietnamese women is even if they're born here, they're still going to be around their family most of the time, right? So unless they're really, really, for lack of a better word, a wild child, where they're completely cut off from their, from their roots, for the most part, they're still going to be fairly traditional in certain senses. And what do I mean by that? Vietnamese inherently, and this is not a popular statement to say, is still fairly a sexist society. And what do I mean by that? It is still more accepted that the man is the breadwinner and that his opinion is valued more. Now, I'm unusual because I came around so young. I didn't have that perspective, right? Which is one reason why when Vanessa started first going out, she really didn't know what to make of me, because I was very different than, the other men, previously that she's been with. So in that regard, you have to understand that Vietnamese women tend to grow up with that in the background, right? Sometimes worse than others. Okay, by that I mean sometimes the societal pressure is stronger than other cases, depending on the family. Why is that important? Well, I noticed that in the early days when I was going with Vanessa, it was very difficult because sometimes there were times when, we had a disagreement, but I could never get her to tell me what was wrong. Because you see, Vietnamese women, broadly speaking, they're kind of told either directly or indirectly that you don't want to make a scene. All right. Now, normally that's okay if you're not in a relationship with that woman. Unfortunately, if you're in a relationship with them, that reluctance to tell you what's going on makes it very difficult to have a healthy relationship. There were times when we were basically not speaking to each other for days, and it wasn't because of my lack of trying, right? And she felt like, well, that's the way she was raised. And so because of that, it was really hard for her to fight that programming. Notice I said that word programming, right? Because that's basically what we're subjected to. So it was very difficult for us to sit down. Now, over the years, it was gotten better, and that only became, I kind of suspected that, and so rather than addressing directly, I started asking her to read self-development books and encouraging her to say, it's okay. I may not agree with everything you say, but you always have the right to express your opinion. That is, I cannot emphasize that enough, right? If you're going out with Vietnamese women, even if they're born here, for the most part, they're been taught since childhood that that's not the case, okay? And at first, like I said, that was difficult. Now, ironically, that's now actually one of the reasons why we have such a strong relationship, because she knows that if there's something that we don't agree on, then she could tell me, all right? This took a long time to develop. Now, some women are going to have this in more, for lack of a better word, more extreme cases than others. Okay, I say Vanessa's kind of middle of the road to give you a sense of this. Even then, it took me months, in some cases over a year, to really get, kind of isolate this. Everything we go and find, and suddenly, she would just kind of, for lack of a better word, shut off. And it was never really shouting, but it was more like, okay, I could tell there's some tension, but I can't figure out, okay, what happened? And, in most cases, you would sit down and have just an open conversation, right? If you're at that point. And we've been going out for a while already, but yet I could never get her to open up. And it took me forever. It took me quite a while to actually figure out what was going on. And it was almost by accident, right? Like I said, I'm really grateful that it happened. So again, the key takeaway I want you to take away from this is really sit down and repeatedly tell the woman that you're with that it's okay for them to tell you if they're not happy with something. Because especially in a previous relationship, they've been burnt by that, right? Like they would basically tell the other party, the man they're with, and then invariably they would be shot down because of that, right? They would be told to either be quiet or in some cases shut up. I've seen both, right? I've seen, I'll leave the details out, but I've seen many cases that's the case. And the older the woman is, the more likely it's going to be the case, because as you can imagine, Vietnamese has changed a lot the last 20 years. So, but as I said, even women that are born here, they're not immune to this, all right? So I want to spend time on this, because if you don't have this in place, pretty much your long-term relationship is going to be in jeopardy. Because think about it, right? I mean, if she doesn't feel comfortable or safe telling you what's wrong, because she feels like, well, it's inappropriate to tell you what's wrong, it's better just to stay quiet. You're going to sit there wondering, okay, are we in a good spot here? Are we, or, you know, you're going to be blindsided. I mean, I was blindsided. And again, mainly because we just didn't, you know, neither one of us knew that this was going to be, you know, something we had to address, right? So that's something that, again, I may have taken a while to kind of get here, but I want to kind of give you that context, all right? So some of the ways I did it was, you know, verbally telling her. In some cases where I felt like something was really out of whack, we actually went to a seminar, not therapy, counseling, anything like that. I just happen to be I'm a very big believer in self-growth. And I'm in an interesting position that I know a lot of the people that teach self-development. I have access to their books and all that. So it could be something as simple as like, one of the books I recommend is The 5 Languages of Love, right? I have a copy of languages around here somewhere. And that right there would be very, very, beneficial, okay? Again, I'm not a marriage counselor, I'm not a therapist, so I'm not giving any advice in that regard. And that's just something that's helped us, okay? So that's one. Now, you have to understand, Vanessa and I speak in the Vietnamese, and she, obviously she's fluent in English, and so for us, language wasn't a barrier. Depending on who you're going out with, you have to take that into account as well. Again, I thought that was going to be an issue, but even though we speak both languages, it's still, there were still times there was miscommunication because my perspective is more like over here, like for lack of a better word, more an American or Western mindset. Hers a little bit more over here. Over time, we kind of did this. But in the early days, it was kind of over here. And we just assumed, hey, we're both Vietnamese, we grew up, we grew up in a Vietnamese family. How different can it be, right? So you came when we were young. I came when I was 7 years old. Like, no, you cannot underestimate this right here. Okay, so I did promise you that I want to give you kind of like a more realistic view of this versus kind of like a romanticized view, right? A lot of guys, unfortunately, I'm not saying this is necessarily your case, but I talked to a number of folks that they say, oh yeah, I want to basically marry a Vietnamese woman because I had this and this, in a previous relationship with a non-Vietnamese woman, and then I know that that's a very simplified view of being a long-term relationship, right? I mean, you're going to be somebody long-term. There's just going to be hiccups and speed bumps, so you just kind of got to know that going in. I'll wrap it up here in a couple minutes. So on a related topic, we have we're starting to build a relationship with a couple. I'll leave out the details here just for anonymous reasons, and it's a mixed marriage. And they told me that one of the reasons and she's not as fluent in Vietnamese, she's not anywhere near as fluent in English as Vanessa is, right? And the couple told us that one of the things that they got along really, really well is both parties were upfront about what they're expecting from the relationship, and very, very upfront, right? Like, so this is the deal breaker. If we basically have this, let's not continue. These are obviously, things that we can work on together. And that list of deal breakers is very small. I mean, again, I'd rather not get into the details, but, some case that may be religion, some case that may be a lifestyle, like they smoke or not smoke. Everybody's got their list, right? Even though they may not articulate it. So, and what they said is that even though language is, continues to be something that they have to work on, what they did agree on is that if one or both parties are upset with the other one, they agree that they're going to sit down and talk about it as best they can, given the language barrier. And yet, even though there's a significant language barrier, they share with us that the couple years they've been together, they really haven't had any real major fights, right? Because they went into it knowing that there's going to be issues, versus having a very romantic view of what a long-term relationship is going to be like. All right, so let me just kind of wrap up here. This is an ongoing thing that I like to be very open with you about. So like I said, just in wrapping up, okay, just when you go into a long-term relationship, right? And I don't know if you've been in one or many, I have no idea. But when you go into most of our audiences are, I would say, English speaking, which implies that they're probably not Vietnamese. English speaking being their first language, I mean. So you have to kind of know that going in, right? There's going to be a gap. And the best thing to do is rather than avoid it, is just kind of basically address it head on. And just encourage the woman that if, there's any issues, it's okay for her to raise it. Because you have to understand, right? I mean, you may think it just takes one time. She's trying to potentially fight off years, sometimes decades of programming, not just from her community, her friends, it could be her parents, In some cases, extreme cases, could be her grandparents even. So that's one of the reasons why you need to know that going in. Now, am I telling you you shouldn't get into long-term relationship? Of course not. But I'd rather give you a balanced view of what it's really like, right? I mean, having Vanessa in my life has been, for lack of a better word, a game changer. It's, I've been happier than ever I've been in my life. But there were times when I'm telling you that it was, it was like, what the heck is going on here? Like, I don't get it. Like, what's the big deal, right? And it was a big deal to me. It was to her, which is, obviously her right. But because she can articulate to me, I couldn't really figure out how to move forward, right? So you just kind of have to know that going in. So I hope you found this video valuable. It's not scripted, as you can tell. And what I want to do is kind of, again, give you a balanced view of this. And my intent and my goal, if this proves popular and the feedback we get, is I want to share with you kind of every episode, maybe a different, blackbird, or a different point, or something else that you want to know. And like I said, my goal here is that there's enough videos out there that we're talking about how everything is, going to be 100% smooth. And I'm certainly not going to be, telling you a bunch of horror stories. At the same time, I like to give you also a balanced view of maybe some rough spot, some speed bumps that you should know about, right? And so that way you can address it and, be ahead of time, or at least have the conversation ahead of time, so that when it does happen, notice it when, not if. When it does happen, then you at least have a plan on how to resolve it, right? Because that's really the basis of a long-term relationship, is to basically have enough transparency and enough confidence in each other and enough understanding that you can actually bring things to light and actually sit down and have a very, very candid conversation. And if you can't have that, then then that also is something that needs to be addressed as well. All right. So again, my name is Alex. I hope you found this video valuable. This is what we do, right? We help Western-speaking men have a long-term relationship with Vietnamese women here in the U.S. and also over Vietnam as well. And there are differences. Trust me, there are. And our goal is to help you create a community that you can basically feel very comfortable, to openly talking about these topics. And if you like our services in helping you introduce to, women that has already gone through the screening process with us, meaning that we've already checked their background and we understand what they're looking for. And so that way we can connect you and save you a lot of time. And also make sure that you only meet, connect you with women that's a fit for you. I'd love to be able to help you with that, all right? So having said that, if you enjoyed this video, please comment below. Give us a feedback. Feel free to share what you like, what you didn't like. And if you did like this video, please also be able to tell your friends about it, all right? So again, my name is Alex. On behalf of Vanessa and myself, I really enjoyed shooting this video. Let me know what you think of it, and I'll talk to you in the next video, okay?